Welcome to A Pod Somewhere in Time. I'm your host, John, and I'm here with my co-host, Matthias. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing Iron Maiden's album, A Matter of Life and Death. But before we get started with the episode, we have a special announcement. There's a birthday, and that
Yeah,
birthday is the release of Matthias's band, Dead Kosmonaut, and their album Retrospectre. The music that you hear at the beginning of the episode is from Dead Kosmonaut from one of the previous albums. But today, the day that we're recording this episode, is the birthday of his new album. And
yes.
yep, you can find it on the streaming services. You can find them on Bandcamp. I will leave, as I always do, a link in the description that you can check out Dead Cosmonaut. Definitely do that. I'm confident that if you are an Iron Maiden fan, you will enjoy Dead Cosmonaut, as well as if you're just a fan of good hard rock and heavy metal, you're going to like this record. So make sure you check that out. Also, make sure you head over to Lair the Alchemist. That's my YouTube channel. We put out a video version of all the episodes that we do. You can watch this one. It's good to watch the video versions because Matthias always shows pieces from his collection related to the album that we're talking about. I also talk general hard rock and heavy metal on my YouTube channel, and I'll have an interview with Matthias about the new Dead Cosmonaut album on the channel too there. So plenty of reasons for you to head on over and check out Layer of the Alchemist. Okay, let's get to today's episode. We're talking about A Matter of Life and Death. It's the 14th studio album from Iron Maiden. It was released on August 28th, 2006 worldwide. September 5th, '06, it was released in USA, Canada, and Japan. It's produced by Kevin Shirley. Writing sessions began at the end of 2005. The album was recorded at Storm West Studios in London. Steve Harris decided that the album should not be mastered. We'll be discussing that within the episode. The album cover was by Tim Bradstreet, who is famous for working with the Hellblazer and Punisher comic book series. The album was performed in its entirety during the '06 leg of the A Matter of Life and Death tour. The reincarnation of Benjamin Brigg and Different World were released as singles, both featuring various live tracks and edits as B-sides. There was a limited edition version of the CD that came out with a DVD that contained the documentary The Making of a Matter of Life and Death, as well as music videos and photos. The album would prove to be very successful for the band, landing high up on many countries' album charts. The '06 shows were dubbed the A Matter of Life and Death tour, in which they would play the entire album as well as a few classics at the end of the show. The tour would begin in the US at Hartford on October 4th and end on December 23rd in London, England. A Matter of the Beast tour, named for the 25th anniversary of the release of the Number of the Beast album, took place in the summer of 2007. This tour would feature mostly classic songs with some rarely played songs from the Number of the Beast album as they were celebrating its anniversary, and also mixed in would be a few songs from the new album. The tour would begin on March 9th in Dubai and end on June 24th in London, England. Notable opening bands across both these tours were Lauren Harris, who is Steve Harris's daughter, Trivium, Motorhead, Machine Head, In Flames, Mastodon, as well as a few others. Also of note, in September of 2005, the band would perform a benefit concert as well as release a limited number of singles to support original drummer Clive Burr with his battle with MS. The concert took place at the Hammersmith in London. Okay, Matthias, we're three albums into what I like to call the Rob era of the band, the Return of Bruce era, A Matter of Life and Death. What are your memories of this album when it came out? What were your thoughts then? What are your thoughts now?
Yeah. At first I was very enthusiastic about this album, and to me it was sort of an album that I liked Brave New World, and I thought that Dance of Death was a bit better, maybe a bit more uneven, but the like we talked in the previous episode, the good songs were like better than the better songs on Brave New World for me. And with A Matter of Life and Death, I thought made an even more perfect album, sort of, that they just gradually stepped up for each of these reunion albums. What I think today we have to return to after the discussion of the album, I think. But at the time, I was very enthusiastic. I absolutely loved this album. I thought it was great. What I didn't was that particularly keen on was the sleeve of the album, and I think it's a bit dull looking. Of course, it sort of matches the more somber, more grown-up sort of approach that the lyrics have with the themes of war and stuff like that. Everything that's a matter of life and death, I think. That's why they choose the title. Uh, but I just don't think it sort of grabs you, this album by Tim Bradstreet. Also mentioned as a cover artist, when you read the sleeve lines, is someone called Grant Golish or something like that. And I think his job was to put color to the illustration. Maybe that's a comics thing, with
Yeah.
illustrated
Yeah, it
novels. Yeah,
usually is. Yeah.
yeah. But the I think the presentation, the gatefold sleeve, is very nice. Uh,
And it's
this
also of note with that cover. I was thinking of this the other day. Of course, Eddie, in some form or another, is on every Iron Maiden cover,
Yeah,
except on this one. On
yeah.
all the other covers,
Well,
he's sort of a living being of some sort. Oh, there he is up there. Okay, on my
yeah.
CD, I
He's
couldn't
riding
really.
the tank. He's
He's
leading his
okay.
troops.
See,
Yeah,
honestly, I don't, my vinyl is packed away at the moment, so I wasn't able to look at and I was just looking at it on, streaming it on Apple Music and I
yeah.
looked at it online too, and I couldn't tell that that was Eddie back there. I thought that
No,
was just another one of the skeletons. So it's sort of like Eddie is really in the background of
yeah.
this
Literally.
cover.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
literally, figuratively in the background. And in fact, my eye was drawn towards the symbol on the tank, Eddie's head on the tank. And
yeah.
so I thought that, okay, that's Eddie's thing on this cover. So in my mind, I was like, wow, this is a cover where Eddie is not like usually he is the focal point of the
Definitely.
cover, and in this one he's not. He's almost just like a background. You'd miss him if you weren't like I did. I didn't even notice that that was him. He sort of blends in with everybody else.
Yeah. It's not that I have a problem with Eddie not being like the main character. I think that works. What I don't think works is the colors and the composition of the very illustration. I just think it's a bit boring and it doesn't really grab you. Of course, it's a dramatic scene with a tank and there's explosions in the background, but I just don't get this. I don't get emotionally, sort of, doesn't grab me. So yeah, it's a bit dull. I think dull is the word that sort of summarizes my my views on that sleeve. Uh, at the time, like you said in the intro, the album was very popular, and in many European countries, just like in Sweden where I live, it went straight into number one. And when they released the tour dates that they would line up, I saw them 3 dates in Stockholm on the 17th, 18th, and 25th of November, the same year that the album was released in '06. And here is the tour program for the European part. And here are, for you listening to the pod version, I'm now showing the centerfold of this tour program of the tour and my tickets. I haven't really done this before, have I? It just struck me. It's a bit weird that I have tour programs from every tour they ever done, but I don't think I've ever had them on display in the pod, have I? No.
No, yeah, I didn't know you have them from every tour. You mean every tour
Yeah,
you've gone to, or every
yeah.
tour?
Every tour I've been to, and I sort of try to get hold of everyone from previous tours. Like I said, I've seen all the tours since 1988,
Uh-huh.
and I've never been I mean, in the world of Maiden fans, collecting T-shirts is like
Yeah.
you're collecting the records, of course. But I think in close second is people who are just collecting everything Eddie. So
Yeah.
T-shirts is like a huge thing among Maiden fans. But I've never been that sort. If I find an Eddie T-shirt that I think looks good, I will buy it, of course, and if I think it's worth the money. But when it comes to tour programs, it's been one of my things, so to say, that I've always tried to buy. I enjoy having those tactile, watching
Yeah.
the pictures and everything.
We'll
So
have to
that,
do a Layer of the Alchemist episode where you show us all your tour programs for Maiden. That'd be fascinating.
yeah, we could do that. Yeah. So I went to these. So the 17th and the 18th of the Stockholm gigs were like the first one that they announced. They sold out like, and people didn't know what they were going to play. So the very idea and the concept that you mentioned in the intro that they would play the all of the album wasn't known, publicly known. They couldn't book the venue for 3 consecutive nights because they had other arrangements in the venue of the Globen here in Stockholm. The Globe. Today it's called Avicii Arena. It's very unfortunate, but that's what they call it these days. But it's the same place. And we they sold out like in minutes, 2 shows, and this was at the time the biggest indoor arena in Sweden. And they added a third gig on the 25th of November. And at the time, I was very much a fan club member, and I got in to have some sort of lottery. You could apply for having like what they call the first to the barrier. So I won a few of these, which meant that I had like access to the area at the front that were accessible mainly to fan club members. But that meant that I also had to endure Trivium for 3 nights. And truth be told, it was a bit of a surreal. Actually, me and a friend talked about this just a few days ago. That it was so awkward. It's not that I hate Trivium; it's just not my thing. But you know that you see one gig, and then you see a second gig, and you go like, "Didn't he say that yesterday?" Like exactly the same talking,
Yeah.
and even the way that they moved around on stage was sort of choreographed.
Yeah.
And when you saw the third gig, it was like, okay, they just have a routine, and they do that every night,
It
which was
amazes me that they're not sort of aware enough to say, hey, we're playing the same venue. Like my wife and I go on this 70,000 tons of metal cruise every year, and every band plays 2 sets. So this is literally the exact same audience. You're on a boat. So it
yeah,
is the exact same people. No one else can come to the second show. And I've seen bands, a lot of bands are good about it. They'll do 2 different sets. They
yeah,
do something special because it's on a cruise ship. But then there's other bands that play the exact same set. They say the exact same things between the songs. They stand in the exact same places. It's almost comical. And again, being that it's the same audience and you just saw them 2 days before that, you notice it and you remember it. So you would think
yeah,
that people would say, "Hey, this is a special thing. We're playing 3 nights in a row in some particular place. Let's mix up the set list. Let's try to do something," realizing that it probably won't be the exact same audience every single night, but you're going to have a certain percentage of people that are going to go to more than one show,
yeah.
especially for a
So
band like Iron Maiden, where you know
yeah,
that
especially
there's going
yeah,
to be a lot of people that'll go to all 3 shows.
yeah. And I think that we have to discuss this a bit because I know the concept of playing the whole album was debated at uh, back then, and I think in Sweden it was like people, at least where I was like up front, and when I talked to like fellow Maiden fans, everyone was very, very into the idea of that it was a really cool idea to play the album from start to finish. That it was sort of a statement. I think we discussed this earlier, John, on this pod. But I also know that in some places, and I think in the US, it was like it didn't work at all. That people were like angry even that they were doing the whole of the album. Like, where's Run to the Hills? Why don't they play all these famous, songs?
Yeah.
I thought it was a really cool concept, and I think the stage looked cool. It was like I could see it's not actually it's not a concept album per se, but there is a theme and a vibe about it that sort of makes it work in that sort of conceptual setting, if you like. So I liked it, but it was debated, and I think it's still sort of debated about was that really a good idea. But they were really proud of the album, so they did it for the best of reasons. They just thought that what songs are we going to play and what songs are we not going to play? And I think it just grew out of that discussion within the band that, like, but I want to do that song. I think that's a strong song. And in the end, I thought, well, why don't we just play all of the album? And I think it was like 5 songs at the end that were like Fear the Dark and, famous old songs. Um, you also, did you see this tour, John, in the US when they did this?
Yeah. Yeah, they did I think they played in New York, I think, or I can't
Mhm.
remember if that was for Dance of Death, but I do remember seeing it and I enjoyed it. The stage set was all done up to made to look like a trench,
Mm.
barbed wire and sandbags and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I do understand. Although, is this the time? Isn't this when they start this cycle of doing touring for a new album, doing a themed tour?
Yeah,
Isn't that when this starts? This
yeah.
because they pretty much stuck to this cycle, and I think that was smart because you're sort of giving a tour for the new album, for the fans that want to hear stuff from the new album, newer stuff, but then you're also appeasing people who want a classic themed tour. Like for this
Mhm.
one, they did the anniversary of A Number of the Beast. Later on, they would have various themes, honoring other records or other tour cycles from their past. So I think that this is when they start doing that, and I think that they come upon a winning formula, if you will. It allows them to sort of have the best of both worlds. They don't want it, and I respect them for this. They don't want to turn into a band that releases a new album and then they go out on tour and they don't even play anything from the new record.
Mhm.
Or they play one token song somewhere in
Yeah,
the middle of the set and everybody leaves to get popcorn and it's just sort of like, whatever. It
yeah.
shows that they're dedicated to this new music, that the music isn't just, well, let's just put something out just to try to sell some. They're truly dedicated to this. They believe in
Mhm.
it. So thus they're giving it its own space, but they're also reasonable enough and logical enough to know that it's the 2000s and there's a certain percentage of people in some ways they sit in that world of legacy band, nostalgia band, classic band that that's relying on their past bigger records,
Mhm.
but they're also a band that's releasing new music and they're serious about it and it's not an afterthought. And so I don't know. I like this. I like what they do. I think it's
Mhm.
smart. It's a
Yeah,
smart business move. It They'd probably be financially better off just doing these classic tours, just rehashing
yeah.
the hits as a lot of bands from the 80s do. But I respect them for doing this, and I think the fans appreciate it too. And I think it's helped them. This this album was, to me, where this era of the band really starts establishing itself as a new era. The first
Mhm.
album, it's the reunion album. There's a lot of hype around it because Bruce and Adrian are back. Dance of Death comes out, keeps the momentum going. But for me, this is where they really solidify, like, okay, this is a new chapter of Iron Maiden. This is a new era. They're serious about it. This is something that you can count on now. It's just not
Yeah,
some thing that we're going to get random albums every now and then. And one's going to sound like it's from 1980. One's going to sound like they're trying to sound like what's ever hip at the time. No, this to me is when they really start establishing Iron Maiden, the current version of what we have with Iron Maiden today.
yeah, I think so. What you're saying about that they started this sort of cycle started with on the previous tour in '05, where they were going back. They released a DVD called the Early Days, and the which was
Yeah,
very,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, very, very popular. And they decided to do this tour and play just like old songs, uh, which was a great concept. They sold out stadiums. They played. There is, I think it's online, easy to find, where they play in Göteborg, sorry, Gothenburg here in Sweden, where they play Ullevi Stadium, which is like the a huge football stadium, sports arena, and they sold that out. There is a TV, Swedish national TV had a live broadcast from that show, which is on YouTube. And I think that sort of started a thing among many Maiden fans, that you want to see Iron Maiden in Sweden in general, and you want to see Iron Maiden playing Ullevi in Gothenburg. So for the tours after the '05 tour, when they've done these cycles, as you say, they have returned to Ullevi, and it's been like a global Iron Maiden community thing to go to Gothenburg and see Iron Maiden. Which, if you just say that for Maiden fans, it's a thing to go to Gothenburg, you why would you go to Gothenburg? Wouldn't London be the place, or I don't know, somewhere else? But the reason behind that is that they had this very, very popular TV broadcast, which has been bootlegged to death, of course, and it's on YouTube. You can find it. You were talking about the Kleiber MS Trust Fund. They released these singles in '05 in very different, a few different formats. Popular songs, The Trooper and Number of the Beast, were released again with bonus tracks, live tracks as B-sides, and it was just done to raise money for Kleiber and his MS Trust Fund. And they did this very special gig at Hammersmith, which has a bit of an interesting backstory for me, because I went there. At first, I didn't feel like wealthy enough to go to England to see Iron Maiden play at Hammersmith, as the tickets were pretty high. The prices were. You need money to travel as well, and I wasn't exactly well off at the time. But I went to Gothenburg to the Ullevi gig, and it just happened to be sort of a weird experience because we were in a spot in the audience that wasn't exactly, I don't know, it wasn't really pleasant. It was like some sort of aggressive people around, and it's just sort of put me in a bad headspace, and it threw me off a bit. So after that gig, we sort of decided that, or I personally decided that this can't be the one gig that I see from this tour. And I knew that as a fan club member, I could get tickets for the London show at Hammersmith. And of course, every Maiden fan knows that Hammersmith is like the icon, the legendary venue that Iron Maiden played over the years. So to see Iron Maiden doing these songs, playing for Clive at Hammersmith, was like, okay, just let's find the money I need to do this. So we went there, and it was a really, really special thing, of course. It's the only time I've been to that venue, Hammersmith. Uh, and as we were gathering outside the venue before, well advanced in time before the actual time of the concert, we met fans, we talked to people, and literally we were standing on the open space next to the road, which is this is in a built-up area. It's an old theater, Hammersmith. And as we were standing there, I sort of said, "That looks like Bruce Dickinson on a bicycle over there." And we, as he came closer, it was like, "Yeah, that's Bruce." So as I've been telling you guys before, we had this web page, the Bruce Dickinson Wellbeing Network, me and my friend Henrik. So we had met him a few times, done interviews, and I just said, "Hi, Bruce," something like that. And he just stopped the bike next to the road with the sidewalk where we were standing, talking to like two other people or something. And it was hello, guys. And we were just chatting along. It was a bit surreal because you could imagine that someone like Bruce Dickinson talking to people outside the venue that they were going to play in a few minutes would like attract a horde of Maiden fans. Just
Yeah.
like this, everyone would just come over and say, oh, Bruce, Bruce. But the funny thing is, I think that the way that people's minds work is not, a regular person doesn't expect the lead singer of the band headlining the venue will come on a bicycle and just randomly talk to a few guys standing there.
Yeah.
So it actually took a few minutes before people started to realize that that's Bruce. Like,
Yeah.
and so there were like one coming over, two people coming over,
Then
a few
hundreds.
more. And by that time it was like Bruce saying, okay, it's time for me to head backstage to get ready for the show. So he just took his bicycle and just went around the corner, backstage area.
The only thing that would have been better if he was like riding one of those bikes with a huge front wheel and a
Yeah,
tiny little back wheel. Like something like
exactly.
that would have
Yeah,
been, really, or
the
like a
prisoner.
unicycle, just one wheel, he's really high up in the air and he rides in,
Uh,
you know.
the one you're talking about with the
Yeah.
huge front wheel that you're sitting upon, it's called a penny farthing,
Okay.
and that is also a symbol for the prisoner. It's like a symbol that appears in the TV
Oh,
series The
really?
Prisoner.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So that would have been like a double thing there. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
which is nice. A bit more show and tell, unfortunately for you, if you're just listening to this. But this is also a very fond and dear Bruce memory for me and Henrik. In '06, Ross Halfin released this book. It's just called Iron Maiden, The Photographs by Ross Halfin. And of course, if you have the slightest interest in Iron Maiden, I think most people listening to this have, you know that Ross Halfin was like the official photographer for quite a few years, taking all those iconic photographs of the band. Not so much for album sleeves for some weird reason, but he took a lot of live photos that you can see in Kerrang and Metal Hammer. And in '06, he did this book. And we happened to run into Bruce in the autumn when they were playing this arena in Stockholm that I was talking about. And I sort of mentioned that I just got this book like just a few days prior to these gigs. And he said, I haven't received my copy yet. I'm very curious to see it. Can you bring it later so I can see it? So we arranged that we would meet up again somewhere in at the hotel where they were staying in Stockholm. And so we had a exclusive meeting with Bruce Dickinson.
Wow.
Browsing through photographs in this one. And there are two photographs that he sort of, for the most part, he was just going, I remember that, or just, humming and going like, oh, that's a good photo. But there were two photos that sort of stood out that I actually remember him commenting. And let me see here. I will show you these and tell you. So this was the first photo that he commented on. It's a photograph of Bruce in his stage attire, photographed on the World Peace Tour. He is wearing sort of everything. And when we came to this page, he just went, "What was I thinking?" And he just laughed and laughed and laughed, look at that. What went through my head? And then and then he started to talk about, his he made a few comments over the years about his stage outfits and how weird they sometimes are, like making a bit of fun of himself. But with this photograph, it was like, what's going on here? It's like I found all this stuff and I just had to put everything on, which was very, very funny. The other photograph that had a very different reaction, or two photographs actually, was this. These are two photographs of Adrian Smith live on, I think it says Sacramento, on the World Celebrity Tour. This must have been 85 in the US. And it's just two black and white photographs of Adrian. And he sort of, what makes me remember this is like when we came here, and it was like he had this, like a tender tone to his voice. And he just said, look at him. He's such a star. And it could be some sort of remark just to be funny or something, but you could sort of tell that he's really fond of this guy. He is. When he saw these photographs of Adrian Smith, it just made him feel like, I love that guy. Look at him. He's great.
Awesome.
And I thought that was sort of endearing to hear that. This book that we have I've been showing a few times now in this pod series is the Run for Cover, The Art of Derek Riggs by your pal, Martin Popoff. That also came out in 2006. But yeah, is there anything else for me to talk about this album? Do you, what was your, like I said, my first impressions was I was very enthusiastic. I thought it was like, now they've done an even better album than the two previous albums. That was what I was feeling at the time. So what were your initial reaction to A Matter of Life and Death?
I very much liked it. Uh, I liked Brave New World. I was a little indifferent towards Dance of Death, although I've warmed up to Dance of Death over the years. At the time when Dance of Death came out, I was kind of like, this is okay. It didn't excite me a lot. I didn't really get into Dance of Death at that time. I think some of it had to do with the production. Go back to that episode. You can hear us talk at length about that. But when A Matter of Life and Death came out, I was really excited. There was, did that early years DVD come out before this album came out?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
in 05. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot of if you remember the Ed box, that came out, I think, in '02 or something. So Maiden was kind of
No,
in
that
this.
was earlier. That was earlier. It was, I think, it was 98 even.
No, I'm
So
thinking of that. There was something that they put out. Uh, there's something that they put out like a box set or something. It had like the BBC stuff on it.
yeah, that
Uh,
the head box set with all the
yeah.
remasters, and they are from 98.
It says here it's 2002 on at least that's what Wikipedia says. I don't know. Maybe it's not accurate.
No,
Eddie's Archive.
no,
Yeah.
Eddie's Archive is later. The box set with the
Oh,
Eddie.
okay. Yeah, I'm thinking of Eddie's Archive.
Yeah, yeah.
So, in other words, they were sort of uh, reminiscing about the past, releasing stuff from the past, that
Mm,
documentary, yet they were still putting out new music. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, they were really hitting their stride with this uh, tours featuring old stuff. We're just starting to do this tours featuring old stuff, the new album. So it was just a really exciting time. I was
mm,
thinking a lot about Iron Maiden. I was really excited for this record. I bought it the day it came out. Uh, I remember liking it has a darker feel to it
mm,
thematically. We mentioned that it's not a concept record, but there's sort of a theme that runs through it, the war themes and the soldiers and the fighting and battles. That kind of runs through this. This album has, I'm gonna say, two of my favorite songs from the reunion era, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns and The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love both those songs. So that lead-off single, Benjamin Brieg, I was super excited for it. I loved it. I also have a unique memory of this record. I got the flu in February of would have been '06. So the album had been out for a little bit at that point. And the reason why I remember exactly when it was I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, and the Philadelphia Eagles went to the Super Bowl. And I had the flu when the Super Bowl was happening. And then the next time I had the flu was when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl again. So I joke that the only time I get the flu is when the Eagles go to the Super Bowl. But I put this CD in and it just played. I put it on repeat and it just played through my stairs. I was laying there on the sofa in and out of consciousness. It just played like I must have listened to it 100 times in like the 2 or 3 days that it took me to get over the worst of this having the flu. But I've always loved this record, and I think in a way it's become a fan favorite from this era. I don't want to say it's a cult favorite because it's a popular record. It did very well. I think the just like the tours, the momentum from Bruce is Back, the excitement of Brave New World, Dance of Death, they were really starting to pick up some momentum and some steam here, helped by the DVD documentary, all this stuff going on. There was just a lot of energy coming from the Iron Maiden camp, I think, and that helped this album do really well in the age of illegal downloading. We're still sort of at that phase. I'm not quite. No, I don't think streaming wasn't happening at this point. So this is right in the middle of Napster and all that stuff, right? So, but I remember standing outside Best Buy waiting for the door to open with probably 20, 30 other people to run in and get the album. And so it was exciting. It was really exciting. I like the record. It's from this era of the band, this chapter of the band. It's probably my favorite for the reasons that I like the darker tone to it. I think that the word progressive gets thrown around with this era of Iron Maiden, and
Yeah.
I often uh, bite back against that and say they're not progressive. These are just long songs. You will often hear me complain that they really could use a strong producer who will help them trim the fat off of their music. But I think on this record, it works. I haven't thought about this, so I haven't done the math of comparing every riff and every song. This might be their most progressive record in what I describe as the definition of progressive, not
Mhm.
just long songs. There's
Mhm.
a lot of riffs, there's a lot of things going on in these songs, but it works for the most part. For most of the record, it works. To me, this is like, I think the line that they're trying to walk in this era of the band, it works the best on this record. Maybe some of the other ones too, but if I had to pick one that I think it works the best on, I would say this record. So for that reason, it's an album that I come back to often. The production is it's weird. Like when I'm listening to this album in isolation, meaning I wake up in the morning and I turn this record on. There isn't anything that particularly annoys me about the production or anything. But when I jump to this record, like if I'm listening on streaming, I'm listening to something else, and I jump to this
Mhm.
record, I'm always like, ooh, this is
Yeah.
kind of like weird and like small and boxy sounding.
Mhm.
So it's kind of strange. It kind of reminds me of It doesn't sonically sound like the first three Blue Oyster Cult records, but the first three Blue Oyster Cult records, the black and white era Blue Oyster Cult, have a weird, boxy, lacking high, extreme highs, lacking extreme lows sound to them. And in isolation, it kind of works. But when you start A being it against something else, it's like it starts showing the problems with this mix. And not that I think A Matter of Life and Death sonically sounds like any of those Blue Oyster Cult records, but it's kind of an album that listening to it on its own, it sort of works as its own thing. But then when you start really comparing it to other albums, it just doesn't stand up as well. There's some weirdness going on, and I mentioned in the description the fact that Steve didn't want to master this record, and I think that that was a reaction to Dance of Death, which I complained about, and I think one of the reasons why I never embraced Dance of Death as much when it came out was is that it was a casualty of the loudness wars. Without getting too deep into it, I talk about this on my YouTube channel. You can look it up there. The loudness wars is basically you're taking the audio and you're cranking it up really loud. You might say, "What's the problem with that? This is heavy metal." Well, what happens is you start squashing the dynamics. The music gets very kind of splattered, fatiguing on the ears, and that's kind of how I felt Dance of Death was. I think that Steve not wanting to master this record was sort of a reaction to that. And unfortunately, he overcorrected to the
Yeah,
other side of it. I appreciate the fact that he was trying to make a record with dynamics intact, with an old school analog feel to it. I always say to people that complain about production in the Rob era of the band, me being one of them, I always say, you know what? Go back and listen to Thick as a Brick, listen to Peter Gabriel era Genesis. Uh, in other words, what I'm getting at is listen to the stuff that Steve listens to all the time. The albums that he always name drops as his favorite records. Guess what? Thick as a Brick, love that record, is
mm,
not exactly like a super punchy, hi-fi, dynamic, tons of sparkly treble and thunderous low end bass. It's a great record, but I can kind of hear where Steve's ears are in this sort of early 70s style of production, and I think that that reflects like maybe in this record a little bit and in some of the following records. But to sum it all up, I love this record. If you pressed me on it, it might be my favorite from this era of the band. Uh, it's got some of my favorite songs from this era of the band. I think it's just everything kind of clicking for them, and it's a record that sometimes I really get in the mood for this record, and I'll sit and just listen to it
yeah,
a lot. It's long. Some things probably could have been trimmed on it. We'll go through that when we go through the songs, but for the most part, it doesn't feel as long as it's like over an hour. It's like an hour and I don't know, 7 minutes or something, hour and 2 minutes or something like that, which is a lot. That's crazy. That's like a double record from the 80s, So
yeah,
there's a lot of music on it, but for the most part, I think it moves pretty quickly and everything. So yeah, this is an album that's aged well for me. And I know other people too that kind of cite this as like, the first one was what's the best from the reunion era? A lot of people, Brave New World. It's got Wicker
mm,
Man. It's a lot of excitement around that record.
yeah,
But then I think there's a certain faction of the fans that are like, nah, man, it's a matter of life and death. And maybe some of the newer ones too just need a little
yeah,
bit more time because I am quite fond of Senjutsu and
yeah,
uh, but I just think that this one has over the time has become a fan favorite pick.
yeah. I think your points are all very valid. That with the sound that you mentioned, it is a bit unusual sounding, and I think you have to sort of admit. And talking about, we released this album Retrospectre today, Dead Kosmonaut album, and we have been like talking about how much compression, how do you mix this, how do you make things sound not too modern, because to me, absolutely, there are a lot of albums put out that are just too modern. They have like a ton of guitars, but you can't really hear a bass. You have bass frequency, but you don't hear the instrument. You don't hear a player playing a string. You just
Yeah,
hear a
rumble. Yeah.
you hear the rumble. And for us in Dead Kosmonaut, it's not about being like a retro band, because I don't think we are. But to us, it's important that you sort of get the dynamic by sort of a trick. Because if you would put like our album and just look at the wave format and see how it looks graphically, it's pretty compressed. I mean, it's not like you describe with this album, that if you listen to A Matter of Life and Death and you go back to sort of Dance of Death, the sound is very, very different. But I don't think that Retrospectre is different in that way. And I'm not talking about my own album to make some sort of advertisement here. Yes, I do, but I have to. It's just by comparison that these things are sometimes. I mean, let's be fair about it. The albums that you mentioned from the 70s and pretty much everything up till at least 1980 384-ish, the mid 80s. They were recorded in analog studios. They were recorded and mixed on older consoles, which meant that you had like tape dynamics, which meant that you had some sort of compression, but natural sort of compression, just by the way that you recorded the albums. We don't have that today. Of course, you can go into an old studio and pay a lot of money just to be in a proper studio using an old tape machine. But for a band like our band, like Dead Kosmonaut, there's just no option for us. We don't have that kind of money to do that. And let's face it, very few artists today can do that, because there's not that much money in recording albums today as it were 40 years ago. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But just to tie in with what you were talking about, what Steve hears and what he likes, of course, his ears are adjusted to the albums that he grew up to. And I'm pretty sure that when his reference work, so to speak, is often older albums. And I know for a fact that, because they did these headphones a few years back, the Ed phones, of course, which has a very straight equalizer. What do you say? There's no like top
Yeah,
uh,
this is
enhancement or
flat.
bottom. Yeah,
They're not curved or anything. There's no
no, no,
added equalizers, just a flat sound. There they are.
there they are. Actually, I just love. I don't love the design. I
Yeah.
would like to have like a bigger something that just put
Uh,
all of your ear in. This just goes on your ear,
yeah.
but the sound of them is pretty amazing, and I just like the fact that they are flat. Flat is the word. And I know for a fact that Steve had these old Onkyo headphones that he used as his reference headphones when he was listening to new mixes. And when they broke, being Steve Harris, he had contacts and actually contacted Onkyo in Japan and say, I want a pair like this, my old ones. Could you make them for me? Which is a bit funny, but it's nice. But so of course, the explanation is exactly what you were talking about. His reference is just older albums, and I think for you and me, John, I think we're a bit the same also, but we are also more accustomed and used to how modern music sounds. So, do I like the sound? I think it. I think it sounds good. Could mastering of the album made the album better? I think it could actually. And Kevin Shirley, the producer mixer, he has talked about that. He would have liked to touch a few of the, just to sort of give it a bit more sparkle. I can't remember exact what words he was using, but just to make it a bit more even and more presentable. Like if you have
Yeah.
an old vase, you have to sort of polish it a bit just to
Yeah.
make it look a bit better. So it's not, you don't change things, you just make it shine a bit more.
Yeah, to explain it to people, I say it like this. What happens is the band goes into the studio, they record. While they're recording, they're setting the levels of the instruments, they're equalizing the instruments and setting the vocals where they want everything. The mastering is what they do after all that. After they've recorded everything, a mastering engineer will go through the whole recording and maybe put a little bit of high end on all of the recording, or maybe one song is brighter than another one, so they sort of even that all out so it's consistent across the record so that the volume between the songs matches. And you can I always say is you can master a record yourself. Like when you see these remastered, you want it, you can do your own remaster. All you got to do is have an equalizer or go up on your stereo and turn the bass knob up. You've effectively remastered that
Yeah.
album. You've added bass to it. You're not changing the levels of the instruments. You're not changing the fundamental sounds of the instrument. It's like taking a picture and putting it in Photoshop and making it brighter, making it darker, adding some sort of color effect to it or something like. You're
Mm.
not changing the picture, you're adding layers sort of on top of it. So when we talk about mastering, that's kind of what we're talking about. And typically what bands do is they record the record, they do all that, they hand it off to a mastering engineer who then adds this other, makes it sound punchy, adds some things to it to sort of make it jump out of the speakers. And
Mm.
they didn't do that here. And so what you get is, like you said, that sound that's maybe kind of, I'm glad you brought up the headphones because I would say that this mix on A Matter of Life and Death is just kind of right up the middle, flat. Not, and I don't say flat in a bad way, just flat as in there's no like sparkle, there's no super deep punch to it or anything. It's kind of a neutral. Let's say neutral. That's a
Yeah.
nicer sounding word. It's a very neutral sounding mix.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to say that too. And that this is to Kevin Shirley's credit. I mean, if this is the mix that he made. And personally, even though Kevin sort of commented on himself that he want to go back and even out a few things, mastering the album, I can't really say that there is much to even out, so to speak. I think the mix is very consistent all through the album, and I think that's a credit to the way that they record and the way he
Yeah,
records the band.
agreed.
He's a pro. I mean, and of course we will talk about this at length for future episodes going through the discography. But of course, Kevin Shirley is a guy who could be like that producer that both you and me and a lot of fans, let's be fair, would like to hear. They would like a more assertive guy go in and say, give it a few directions, or don't do that. Let's do that. Keep that down. Bring that out. You know, that sort of directions. And of course, listening to many albums that Kevin Shirley have worked upon, of course he does that. But he don't do that with Iron Maiden because it's been very clear from the very word from the get-go that that is not his role. He is there to bring out the performances. He is there to catch and recreate, or whatever word you like to, the sounds of the band, period. He's not there to work the songs. He's not there to be the producer guy that sort of makes his mark or makes his version of the album. This is Iron Maiden with all the six members that they have recording this, and it's all their individual songwriting for good and worse. We will go through this talking about the songs, of course. So maybe we should just jump into the titles
Yeah.
that in
Yeah, let's
front of us.
jump into the songs.
Yeah.
Okay. So the album starts with let me get my find my notes here that I made. The album starts with A Different World, and Different World is the exact title. This is something they do this on Dance of Death. They open the album with a quick to the point number. Is this the shortest song on the record? It's 4:17,
Yeah,
and
it must
yes,
be.
it's the shortest song on the record. Uh, it's a little forgettable, but as an album opener, I'm okay with it. I think it's almost like I think of the way they start their albums in this era of the band is almost like okay, everybody, get in your seats, get your drinks, get your popcorn, settle in, like opening music to a movie. It's
Mhm.
sort of like the all right, everybody, get in your seat. an overture to a theater show. It's like, okay, let's get ready, let's settle in. It's a short number. The chorus is good, riffs are pretty good. It comes in, it comes out. Not really one that not it's a good song. It's not the best song on the record. It's not a song that I don't know if you're supposed to put a lot of thought into it. I really think it's just kind of like let's settle into the record. Some bands like to start records just coming right at you. Yeah, we're hitting you
Mhm.
right between the eyes, right from the beginning. During this era of Iron Maiden, especially from this point on, I think that they're really kind of more, yeah, because Wicker Man opens Brave New World, right? Now
Mhm.
that's the opposite. They're hitting you with the big one right from the beginning, and they had to because it's the Bruce and Adrian are back. We got to make a statement. We're back. And that's why, in my opinion, Brave New World starts with Wicker Man. It's just like we got to hit him right from the beginning. This is different. It's kind of like, all right, guys, we met up 2 albums ago. How's everybody doing? It's been a long time. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Now we're past that. We're settled in. So that's the way I kind of view this song. It's not a great song. It's not a bad song. It's an Iron Maiden reunion era album opener. And
yeah,
they're going to play it during the concert too, and it might even be the first song in the concert because it
yeah,
functions the same way.
yeah,
It's just like high energy song comes in and out, hits you. And it also proves that if somebody wanted, I'm often one to make the argument, oh, they need to get a producer in to shorten these songs. One can make the argument, well, when they do that, do you really want them putting out an album full of songs like A Different World?
yeah.
No, not really.
Mhm.
So maybe a song like this sort of refutes my argument that they should be doing shorter songs because, again, not a bad song, but would I want an hour in 2 minutes or however long this record is of songs like A Different World? Probably not, but serves its purpose here on the album.
Yeah. So if I wanted to be like a funny guy and make a funny comment, I could say that Different World is a bit indifferent. The Indifferent World song. No. We mentioned it's Adrian Smith and Steve Harris getting the credits for this one. And from what I understand, from comments from the band in various interviews, it's it's more or less a Steve song utilizing Adrian riffs. So the main riff is something that Steve heard from Adrian recording, just like what you have when he started to work on the album, and he just heard that riff that in the middle of that thing there, that let's use that like the main theme of the song. So it's Adrian's riff and it's verse and chorus by Steve, and it's also Steve's lyrics and melodies, of course. Uh, I could more or less just copy paste what you said. It's a good song, but it's not like great. The thing is, I think I've said this a few times now, but there are some songs in Maiden discography that to me, when I think of them, it's like, meh, is it good? Well, it's there. But when I hear them, it's like, wow, this is good. I mean, when I actually listen to the song, it just makes a bit more sense and it just feels a bit better than when I'm thinking about the song.
Yeah.
Because when you just think about an album and you think about good songs, the bad songs, or whatever, this is a song that is a bit somewhere in the middle. And I could even make an argument that, let's put it this way, of all the Maiden openers on all the Iron Maiden albums, this is probably one of the worst. Is it a bad song? Absolutely not. This is a good song. It rocks. But is it on the top half of? We made this experiment on the previous episode when we talked about Tons of Death. Is this song on the top half or the bottom half of all the definite bottom half? But it's still Iron Maiden and it's still a good song. uh, the first thing that struck me when I heard this song way back then is like, because it's sometimes been talked about that there is this, the twin guitar attack. You have
Yeah.
Wishbone Ash, but Thin Lizzy is always that band
Yeah.
that sort of gets mentioned by default when you're talking about influences for Iron Maiden. And this is, I think, one of the most Thin Lizzy-esque songs in the entire
Yeah,
Maiden catalog.
that's a good one. I never thought of that, but you're right. It
But
is very, yeah,
I can easily hear Phil Lynott sing this song. Uh,
yeah, yeah, you're
I
right.
mean, the pre-chorus bit where Bruce is using a bit of a lower
Yeah,
register, it's like 100% Thin Lizzy to my ears. And Steve also said that he made that connection himself when he came up with it. It was like, yeah, this to me sounds a bit like Thin Lizzy.
yeah.
Uh, so it's
Yeah,
pretty.
that line, the tell me what you can see and then tell me what you do. Yeah, that's like for sure very, yeah. I never thought of that. That's a
Uh,
good point. You're right, it is. This is kind of, you know what? I wish that this is what British Lion was doing. I
mm,
would have rather heard because this is a catchy song, and I never thought of the Thin Lizzy thing, but you're absolutely right. It has a 70s kind of hard rock feel to it. I kind of wish that this was more of what British Line was doing. These kind of, because it is a good chorus. It is a catchy
mm,
chorus. You hear it, sticks in your head. The guitar lines are memorable in a Thin Lizzy kind of way.
yeah.
It's just
And it
in the
all,
catalog of Iron Maiden, it's yeah, when you're making the top 50 or top 100 Iron Maiden songs, this is this is going to be very low on the list just because it's
yeah,
like, you know, in their catalog, it's just not doesn't stand up.
no. But I think you made a good point that you sort of it's an opening song, but it's not a proper opening song to my ears. It's just a song that more or less has the same function that you mentioned. Like, okay, sit down. It's time for the show to start, and they start to play this music. But the actual album sort of really starts sort of like a statement thing with song number 2 on this one, which is These Colors Don't Run, of course. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on These Colors Don't Run?
Yeah, and one last point about Different World.
Yep.
Because of this, the more serious feeling of this record with the subject matter and everything, to have thrown this song in at number 3 or 4 in the track listing would have taken you out of the mood of the record. So
Yeah.
I think it was smart that it was put at the beginning like this. It would have been like, oh, like, why is this scene in the movie? One of those things, like it was shoehorned into the record or something like that. But
Yeah.
having it happen at the beginning of the record, I think is okay. So yeah, these
Mm.
colors don't run. I like the intro. It's kind of moody, sets a mood. It's got a very dramatic chorus. Bruce sounds great, belting it out there, air siren range. I think the keyboards add some nice texture and add to the mood here. The solos are good. There's also like a woe section in it, made for the live setting. I also remember when we didn't mention this. This album came out and this is something else too that was I talked about how there was a lot of energy and momentum around Iron Maiden leading into this record, the DVD, early years DVD. Also, Iron Maiden had played co-headlined. I don't know if it was officially called that, Ozfest. They
Yeah.
were one of the
Yeah.
high up bands on Ozfest, uh, which was a very big thing in the States. Did Ozfest happen in Europe, or was it that other thing just in the States?
I think it was the
Yeah,
States. Yeah.
so that was a very big thing, and it really uh the audience at a typical Ozfest was there was a young audience at that because at the time there were Darren and I just on our Black Sabbath podcast Into the Void we were talking about Geezer's 2 solo records, Own Work and Black Science, and Black Science came out around this time. And we were talking about Ozfest and about how that was a platform for a lot of these new bands, Slipknot and Coal Chamber and Static X and bands like that were breaking because of Ozfest. So for Iron Maiden to be on a tour like that, it was sort of exposing Iron Maiden to maybe a generation of kids that had only ever heard the name Iron Maiden or so there was a lot of energy around Iron Maiden and as I mentioned earlier, and Ozfest was part of that. Well, one of the legendary, infamous incidents at the Ozfest was the band getting pelted with eggs. If you listen to Sharon's Osborne's side of the story, Bruce was slagging Ozzy from the stage on various shows for the fact that Ozzy was using a teleprompter and some other things. Uh, of course, Iron Maiden fans, this is taking it too far to be throwing eggs and stuff like that. Let's be honest, Iron Maiden fans, Bruce is a guy that can sometimes, he can say things from the stage. And I've often talked about, I don't know if I've ever talked about it in this podcast. I know I've talked about it with you and some of our other Iron Maiden friends, that Bruce always seems to have a little bit of a thing about America or something. Like he's just never forgiven America for sort of abandoning Maiden in the early 90s. So he always seems to, every time I've seen him, there's always some sort of comment that Bruce makes that's a little bit of a backhanded, like, well, I'd expect a reaction like that from the US, or he'll say something like that that just sort of showing. So I don't think this helped at all. He's in the US. They're not the headlining band. They're under Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is, of course, with Ozzy, the reunited Black Sabbath at that point. So there was probably, as it happens with these guys, there was probably a little bit of ego going on, between these various bands and everything. So who's to blame? I don't know. But anyways, it happened. There were eggs thrown at the band, some people in the front row, and I have some memory of Bruce, and I should have researched this before this, saying this line like "We don't
Yeah.
run" or "These colors don't run" or something like that. So I remember when I saw this title that's what it made me think of, was like
Yeah.
because for Iron Maiden fans it became like a rallying cry, if you will,
Mm.
circle the wagons, type of thing. All the Maiden fans, a line was drawn in the sand, and all the Maiden fans went and protected their heroes and everything. So, all harmless, kind of stupid drama when you look back on it. But it was something that got a lot of publicity and a lot of attention and a lot of people talking at that time. So great song, great chorus. I like the keyboards that add to it. We're immediately into. I like on this record that there's this. There's also, you get the feeling because it is these war themes, that like what would you say, nihilistic nature of it, the oppressive, the no way out, the doom and gloom, and this is, it's only going in a bad direction. But then there's also these songs that have this triumphant feel to them too, like the chorus in this song, has a very uplifting, triumphant, raise the flags. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, let's rally the troops, raise the flags. These colors don't run. We're not
Mm.
backing down. Yeah, swords rattling
Mhm.
in the air, horses marching, across a field in the battle type of things. So I appreciate it. And this album does that well, where you get this oppressive, like there's no way out of this situation vibe. But then other songs, and sometimes even in the same song, like I think this song does that, where you have that feeling, but then you also get that, but we're gonna win the battle type of thing, vibe. So I do like the chorus in this. I think Bruce sounds great on it. And in a different world wouldn't have been on the record. The album would have started with this.
Mm. Yeah.
And the world would be maybe a better place for it, or at least it wouldn't be a different place. It really
Yeah.
wouldn't have changed the dynamic of this record if a different world wasn't on it. It could have started with this song, and this could have worked as an album opener.
Yeah, it could. It could. Just to comment on a few things that you mentioned now, that yes, I think Bruce said something like "These colors don't run" at that show that you can hear. And let's be fair here, there are only two egos on that tour, and those two egos are Sharon Osbourne
And
and
Bruce
Bruce
Dickinson.
Dickinson. Yeah,
When two immovable objects, and it was probably inevitable, right? They're out there in space, two planets out in space, slowly moving towards each other, and eventually they are going to collide. Neither
yeah,
one is going to move, and the two of them are going to collide,
and
and it collided on that night, apparently.
yeah, the
Were they thrown
gravity
off the
with.
tour after that, or did they leave, or what was do you
No, I
remember?
think it was. Oh, I think it was the last gig of the tour. So I
Oh,
think
was
that
it? Okay.
Sharon sort of waited for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
What they did was that they not only pelted them with eggs, they also cut off the PA system.
Yeah.
So for a few songs, there were like no PA, there were no
Yeah. I forgot
audience
about that. Yeah.
sound, stuff like that. And I mean, it's all very childish and
Yeah.
stupid. And let's be fair, it's not actually it's not like it's Adrian Smith sitting down with the Geezer Butler on that tour and just being sort of aggressive.
Right.
It's Bruce saying a few very unnecessary remarks about people being on TV shows and
Yeah.
making their private life public, stuff. It's so unnecessary, but just like you said, it's so typical of Bruce to sort of be that guy to just there is this red button here. You have to
Yeah.
push it.
Yeah.
You,
Do
you
not push, but
don't touch the red button. I will do that.
yeah. And,
it's
and
it's
and also, Sharon, she shouldn't have well, she shouldn't have done this, period, but she shouldn't have affected the fans. It's not the fans' fault. Like, for
no,
instance, if the last song ended, they're waving to the crowd, and all of a sudden a flurry of eggs land on them, okay? Or if they walk off the stage backstage and they've clogged up their toilets backstage, or they've done something to the backstage area, or they sabotaged their tour bus with stink bombs or something. Hey, all's fair in love and war. But the people out in the crowd are innocent victims of
yeah,
this. They don't really know. Although I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was sort of, and this is probably why it led to this. I think Maiden was getting attention for it, that people were talking about how Bruce was sort of slagging on Ozzy and throwing these things out, and it was becoming a tabloid thing where Blabbermouth every day was, "This is what Bruce said last night." It was like it was starting to pick up steam in the press and everything, and that's
yeah,
probably what really pushed it over the edge. If it was something that he had just said on one show because he was in a bad mood and the press never picked up on it, it probably wouldn't have gone away, but it became a thing. And I sort of even remember it almost being like, hey, didn't they play last night? Oh yeah, let me check Blabbermouth and see if Bruce said anything. It
yeah.
became almost like you knew something was going to happen, and you were kind of like, oh, Bruce, you shouldn't do that. But go ahead and do it, Bruce, because I kind of want to see what'll happen if you keep doing it, type of thing. People standing on the sidelines, egging, pun intended, egging both sides of both camps on, just to kind of see,
Yeah.
where this is going to go.
I don't know. Maybe you know this, but have Ozzy ever sort of made any remarks or comments
I don't
on?
think so. My memory of it is that he didn't say anything about it, that it was Sharon, and yeah, that it was pretty much all Sharon, and it was just all like you just said, it's just two personalities that just collided. And
Yeah,
if it didn't happen on stage, we would have been discussing now how there was a legendary explosion backstage between Bruce, a shouting match between Bruce and Sharon over catering, or over set times, or over whatever. There would have been something, even if it wasn't this. Like you said, these were just two people that, had to, I don't know, Mike Tyson and George Foreman, they have to fight each other. It's like one of these things, like, what they should have done at the beginning of the tour was they should have locked them both in a room and just said, all right, get it out of your system and so that we can move on from this. And of course they didn't do that. But yeah. It would kind of be funny if the two of them, maybe get the two of them on a stage somewhere with some sort of mediator, and maybe the passage of time will cause both of them to sort of back off slightly and laugh about it, but probably not. But who knows? It would kind of be funny to hear both of them maybe try to bury the hatchet, bury the eggs, if you
Yeah,
if you will, on this, and maybe have some fun with it. But
yeah. But the actual song, to me, I have to be honest here. I've never really connected to this song. It's not a bad song. It sort of works, but it just doesn't grab me. I don't know. I'm doing this episode and listening to the album a few more times, of course, than I already have. I've sort of tried to pin down why I don't go off on this song, because I think the individual parts are good. Bruce is singing very high. Although I have to say that doing this song live, he struggled
Mhm.
for the chorus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's
Going up there,
way up in his range.
yeah, and it was a bit like I think I even could have mentioned this to Bruce. That it it is a bit on the you're struggling a bit there, and the thing is that I said, did you ever think about doing this song live when we recorded it in the studio? But and he was just like, well, it's supposed to sound like that. That was his only comment.
Yeah,
So yeah, maybe I just touched something that was a bit disturbing to him or whatever. But
yeah.
but I don't know. You talked about the synths in the song. Yes, they add a bit of a different flavor to it, but at the same time, and I think we mentioned this before, and I think Brave New World or Dance of Death episode, that again, I can't help but thinking they have three guitar players and they add a synth. And of course, I think I said this the last time also, a synth that could be like an organ sound or a piano sound. You could bring
Mhm.
something else to the table and just sort of expand on the sound and make it more widescreen or whatever term you like to use to describe that. But to me, it sounds like that synth sound and that synth thing that you do there could be a guitar instead. Let's
Yeah.
utilize the three guitars here. And why do you have to bring in a fourth lead instrument, if you get what I mean, to do
Yeah.
that when
And
you
the
already?
mix is already, this is, I say this all the time. I don't like what I don't like about the three guitar concept is I don't like in the studio. I just like Iron Maiden with guitar panned left, guitar panned right, bass and drums in the middle. I think that the mix gets crowded. There's times where it works. It works really well when they're all playing harmonies, or it works when two people are playing harmonies live and there's a rhythm guitar underneath. That really works. That helps. Uh, but I don't know. There's always like weird things going on inside the mix where I didn't really make any notes on this, but I just remember preparing for this, and it just like sometimes it's like the instruments move or something. It's like all of a sudden the rhythm guitar. See, on the older records, when it was two guitars and they would go into a harmony part, a lot of times there wouldn't be a rhythm guitar underneath it. It would just think about the Trooper. It's got da 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 da, and Steve's chugging away on the bass underneath. Well, now it's like there's sometimes this awkward thing where there's like two guitars playing a harmony, and then there's a rhythm guitar just in one speaker or something. I didn't really make notes on this, but I just remember feeling this on this record and there's other times where and there is one of the songs, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. I made a note on it where there's like a little guitar line, and it's just so far in the background that you don't even notice it. It's just like they've never figured out how to deal with three guitars. I don't know how else to say it. It just doesn't. It's like trying to get an odd number to fit into three into two. It doesn't work out. It just never sits in the mix the way I like it to. It's ruined the live records for me. I don't like the way it sounds live either. And again, I'm not bashing Yannick. This is just, I just don't like three guitars. I kind of wish that they would just say, we're just gonna have two rhythm guitars uh, on the songs, and they can mix up who plays the rhythm guitars. I don't know, whatever. It's not like there aren't other bands that overdub and layer guitars and things like that, but that's not the case here. It's like they're trying to fit three guitars. They're not overdubbing another guitar to make a guitar sound thicker, which is what a lot of bands will do. They'll double
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
guitar track to make it sound thicker. That's not what they're doing here. They're trying to
No.
make three guitars fit. And then, like you said, they try to add a keyboard into it, and it's just like there's already too many people in this room, and you're trying to squeeze another person into it. And so, as much as I like it that it adds something, it's also a little disappointing because it's just like you see, it just seems kind of like an afterthought sometimes, and it doesn't really it's not as impactful as it could be. It could really add more to the atmosphere of some of these songs if it was just had this more of a sort of wrapping around you kind of thing. It always sounds like it's just a one finger synth line, being played on a dated keyboard.
Yeah, I think you're right. Did we mention it's a Smith Harris Dickinson song?
Yeah,
I
I think
think
so.
again, yeah, I think again it's Adrian guitar parts and it's Steve sort of building the song and Bruce adding his bits on the very end of the song. But again, it's not a bad song, but I just never really connected to it. It's it's just sort of there for me. But yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, and it
Right to
might
the
be
next.
because I
Yeah,
mean I sort of understand where you're coming for that and coming with that because I wouldn't say this is not the best. These colors don't run. It's not my favorite song on the record. Good song, but because some of the other songs are better, I think it gets overshadowed. And one of those songs that, in my opinion, is much better. I love this song, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. I love the mood in this. This is where I commented earlier that if you're going to call an Iron Maiden album progressive, if you have to do that, I would say that this is the album to do that with. The main riff, I absolutely love, and it's in an odd meter. It's in 7/4, which is something that Iron Maiden does not do odd meters often at all. But here it runs pretty much through the entire song. I love that riff. Uh, all the riffs are great in this. Bruce's vocals are very dynamic. I think it's just a fantastic melody line. I love that melody line in the verse. It's just there's just something about that melody line that I love. The guitar and bass sound great on the main riff, really heavy. It's like they're just really the song's kind of held back a little bit in tempo, but it has this heavy sort of pocket to it. Steve has some really cool bass lines in the chorus and in the middle quiet section. I love when it goes back to the main riff at the after the guitar solos. So I love this one. I think this is on the DVD that came with the CD, the limited version of the CD that had a documentary. If it's not on there, at some point they did a live version of this, but it's like live in a studio. They all
yeah,
got the headphones on and stuff like that, and they do this, and it is just I love it. It is just fantastic. They're locked right in. Uh, it's just super tight, and I don't know. I just love it, and it's at 8 minutes and 44 seconds. It is the third longest song on the record, and this was to a point I made earlier. It doesn't feel like that. It moves along well for me. I don't want the song to end. I just love this song, and a lot of it is the main riff, the chorus, Bruce's delivery in those verses, the intensity and everything. Love it. Top
yeah,
five song from the Return of Bruce reunion era of the band for me.
yeah. I can agree with all that. Actually, I think this is the standout track on the album. I think it has great lyrics about Oppenheimer and everything about the Manhattan Project by Bruce. Apparently, according as far as I know, it's Smith, Harris, and Dickinson, but it's Bruce writing lyrics to Steve's vocal melody,
Wow.
uh, which sounds a bit unusual, but apparently that was what's going on here. But I think it's a great lyric. I There is this what me and my friends sometimes call the Steve part, which is
Yeah.
that all of a sudden you have that
Double
sort
time
of,
part or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But in this song, I think that works better than it does on
Hmm.
a few other occasions. But like you say, when you go back from it goes into the guitar solos and then it goes back. It's sort of a bit of a rumble, like
Yeah.
Nico's drumming is just great.
Hmm.
Bruce's vocals. There's not much that I don't like about this song at all, actually. They did this live, of course, since they played all of the album, and I think that sometimes Bruce had a bit of a difficulty with the timing of the song. That he sometimes he was a bit thrown out of the meter of the song, which is uh, a bit unfortunate. Let's put it that way. So it's a bit tricky. I think that we don't. It just strikes me now that we rarely discuss the solos anymore, like we did on the more earlier albums that we've been talking about. But on this very song, I think it's a very "No Pray for the Dying" sounding
Yeah.
Janik Gerso going.
Yeah. Good point.
It's like it's been recorded back then for No Prayer, and they just kept that solo and put it in this song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I can't really say why I think that, but when I listen to it, it's like this is No Prayer, Janik, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I agree with that. I didn't think of
Yeah.
that, but yeah, you're right.
According to Luis Mariano Rodriguez, the uh, at least by us, world famous Maiden researcher, Steve wanted Nico to play a double bass drum for this song. So when he sort of worked on the idea and he suggested to Nico that he should play double bass drum. I haven't read this very into myself actually, but it's referenced to by Lewis. And this is told by Nico himself, and he said he just flat out refused. I won't do that. I don't hear double bass drum in this song. So it would be very interesting to hear if there's like a demo thing recorded by Steve or by Adrian where there's double bass drum program drum machine or something. But it
Yeah.
would be very curious to hear
I'm
that.
glad they didn't do
And
that.
no, I can't. I don't know. Maybe it's the double time part that
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
but I can't really hear a double bass drum there either. It was like be something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a funny thing about this. Yet another personal anecdote from Mattias Einarsson's exciting life.
Mhm.
Me and Henrik, we happened to bump into Adrian. This must have been in the autumn when they toured the album. And because we had heard that before they announced anything about the album, our inside sources were talking about that the album was going to be called Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. That was like the title
Mm.
track of the album. But so when it came out and it had a completely different title, it was like, okay. So I don't think we sort of remembered to ask Bruce, but we asked Adrian about this. And he was so funny, Adrian is often sort of a bit of understated, toned down, very neutral in he's not an animated guy whatsoever. So he has this sort of straight man face, you know. So we asked him that why did they change the title from Brighter Than a Thousand Suns to A Matter of Life and Death? And he just replied with a absolutely straight face, there has to be a death in the title. And we just laughed because it was so funny. And he just sort of smirked a bit, or, that faint smile at the
Yeah,
end. It was really, really funny. There'd be a death in the title. So
that's
now you
funny.
know. That's why
Yeah,
they changed the title.
that's
And
funny.
actually, I think Brighter Than a Thousand Suns would have been like a great title for this album. And I can sort of come up with concepts for the sleeve that's better than the one that
Yeah,
we have on there now. Like I think they could have done more with a title about like Eddie and atom bombs, or the
yeah,
Manhattan Project, or
yeah.
anything. But apparently they decided against that, which I think is a bit unfortunate. But again, just to finish this off, Brighten a Thousand Suns is one of the best songs from the reunion era. I absolutely love this song. I think it sounds great. They played very well, and I know what you're talking about. That when they do this live in a studio setting,
Hmm.
absolutely fantastic. It has such a vibe and just a
Yeah,
great feel. And this is a song that I easily could hear them bring back
yeah. I was thinking
for
the
like
same thing
some
too.
sort.
If you're
Yeah.
talking about something you could bring back from older records, this would be one of them. All right,
Yeah, I
the
think they tried
Pilgrim.
to do it
Oh,
a bit
sorry.
later. They did try it a bit later on some tour, but I think they just dropped it after like a few gigs, something. And then I think they did play it like early dates in the US or something like that. But unfortunately, I don't think that we will ever get to hear Brighter Than a Thousand Suns live
Yeah,
again. But well,
we got to hear it once and consider ourselves lucky, I guess.
yeah.
All right, the Pilgrim. We haven't
Mhm.
talked about this. This starts with Nico's drums. I really like the drum sound on this record.
Yeah.
I think Nico's snare drum has a real sort of punch to it.
Mhm.
Uh, it sounds natural, but you can tell they did something to it, but it doesn't have an over-processed sound to it or anything. And I think Nico's drumming on this record in general, he certainly has moments where he does Nico things with drum fills and stuff like that, but he's really locked into a pocket in a lot of these songs, like just kind of locking into a good steady beat. Like if you told me that Nico was talking about how he was listening to a lot of AC/DC and stuff around this time, I would believe you because he seems to pick his spots really nicely on this record. And he doesn't seem to have a problem with just kind of like the drum beat at the beginning of this, it's a pretty straightforward drum beat, and he just locks into it really, really nicely. So uh, that's what I think of when I think of this song, that drum intro. And I love the single note guitar harmonies between the verses. It's the second shortest song at 5 minutes and 7 seconds. So the brevity is appreciated on a record which has a lot of long songs on it. There's good energy in this one. This kind of falls in with These Colors Don't Run. I would say I don't even like this as much as These Colors Don't Run. Not a bad song. I like it better than Different World. It's okay. Coming after, I'll say this too. I didn't really think of this beforehand, that this album is sequenced really nicely. Coming off of Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, which is one of my favorites from this era of the band, uh, this song, does it suffer because it follows such a great song, or is it smart to put a song that is clearly not as good as Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, but it's still a good song? Again, this sort of concept of like big scene in the movie, and now you got to give everybody a chance to catch their breath, and that's what this song is for me. Good song,
Yeah.
not a great song, not a bad song. It's just here.
Mhm. I think this is one of the songs that is sort of, I wouldn't say it's buried on the album, but maybe this is the spot where, following up, just like you say, following up a song like Brighter Than a Thousand Song is a very hard spot to
Hmm.
fill. And this song, I think it's good. It's actually a really good song. If I were the producer of this album, I would have dropped the intro and outro.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
it's not coming back. It's just there at the beginning and it's there at the end. And I don't particularly like that part. I just think it's a bit unnecessary. But the thing that when that sort of ends, it sort of gets started again when it goes into the first verse, which I
Yeah.
think is a much better way to start off the song. Um, it's a Gers, Janet Gers song. Steve wrote it with Jan, but it doesn't really stand out. It's a good song, but it doesn't really stand out. I like that when he's Nico's playing like a shine. That's a bit unusual, but
Hmm.
also like picking up where you're talking about Nico and the way he plays on this album. It feels like it feels like the drum parts are just a bit more composed. They are
Yeah.
more in tune with the songwriting. It's just a feeling, but it's like it could be that the different parts are more thought out. Like they
Yeah.
just rehearse these songs. And I know that sometimes Steve is very specific about drum parts that he wants for his song, or maybe it's Nico that sort of when he gets a bit more time to think about what to play, as opposed to when we talked about Virtual 11, the second Blaze album, where the drums don't feel very composed at
Hmm.
all. It feels like he's just laying down some sort of basic track or just a rhythm track for the guys to play up on, like not a proper track, but a tryout or something. But on this album, it feels much more composed, thought out, and like you say, the drum sound is very, very good, and it's still very Nico. You can hear
Hmm.
Nicoisms here, you can hear his style, but uh, it's I think it's a very good song. Uh, but it sort of suffers, like you say, it suffers for where it's in the mid. It sort of gets stuck in the
Hmm.
the aftermath of Brighter
Yeah.
Than a Thousand Suns. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think what Nico does on this record, it feels to me like maybe they were trying to go for feels and moods in a lot of these songs. So maybe he dials it back just 10%. Instead of that double kick somewhere, he just takes one of them out and just keeps it a little bit more straightforward. And I think it helps. And the mix helps that too. It has a really great drum mix. So when he's just playing a simple kind of drum beat, it sounds really good and it makes it sound powerful. So all right, The Longest Day. It's another Adrian, Bruce, Steve song. There is a couple of those that are there. One, two,
yeah,
three, four songs on here that are Smith, Harris, Dickinson writing credits. This is one of them. Good, moody intro. It matches Bruce's lyrics and builds in intensity nicely. Nico's drums sound great in the chorus, like we've mentioned in The Pilgrim. This is another one of those songs where during this era of the band they do this well where there's almost like two choruses in the song. And when he goes into like how long of this longest day, that's almost like
yeah,
an extra chorus. Is like, wow, most bands would have settled for just one of those. To
yeah,
have both of these is pretty cool. The song and the lyrics and the mood. This is again what I like about this record. It captures this one is very grim and the ugliness and the evil and the the strain and what it does to people in these situations in battles and war, how mentally and physically taxing that it is. This song and the lyrics really capture that well. That single note riff that comes in before the solos is just awesome. And it plays and it like modulates down a couple steps. And it just sounds so cool, man. I love that. It's very menacing
yeah,
sounding. Again,
yeah,
fits the mood of the song. The first solo is that Adrian. I don't know. It's
yeah,
great though. I love it.
yeah,
And here's again this point that I made earlier. The point I made earlier was some of the choruses. Like when I said these colors don't run, you have these across this record where it's like really oppressive lyrical matter, dark, heavy lyrical matter. But then the chorus is uplifting. Here, when those guitar harmonies come in, it's triumphant. It's like the whole thing is guys in trenches and bombs and guns and dark and mud and dirt and just the lowest point here in the longest day. This is never going to end. But there's that moment when those guitar harmonies come in that it's just has this da da dee da da. It has this like triumphant like
Mm.
feel to it or something that I just love. I think that is such a clever, like, well done songwriting thing that you have this sort of flash of energy and life and hope amongst the longest day. And the way it ends with the guitar, it has like that flanger sound on it or something. Well done. Another top song on this record for me. And I think an example of this record it working really well. Lyrics, everything, lyrics and music working all together really well
Yeah.
in harmony, if you will. Getting
Yeah.
the point across. The music matches the lyrics.
Mm. I didn't remember that I sent you my notes, John, because you just read my notes. It's a bit funny, actually. I'll just read out one of them. I wrote like this for one of the things. Again, it's a nice dual punch with a pre-chorus and a chorus like in Brighter and Different Worlds.
Yeah.
Like just like you said, it's just a sort of unusual move to do that. Um, Again, like you said,
Yeah.
that part where everyone, including Steve, is playing in
Yeah.
unison, which is, I mean, playing in unison is 9 times out of 10 just a bit boring. But in this song, it just feels like
Yeah. Very
exactly
impactful.
that. It's just, what's the word you used? Menacing. It
Yeah.
just feels a bit like it's a bit evil
Yeah.
sounding, and the way it just builds and modulates. I just think that's great. This is, I think, my second favorite song on the album after Brighton and a Thousand Suns. I absolutely love this, and we sometimes discuss and sort of criticize the thing with our Maiden having all these slow, mellow
Mhm.
intros, but for this one, it's like perfect. It
Yeah.
just builds the mood. It just sets the stage. The lyrics, of course, is about Operation Overlord, the when the Allied uh, troops got into France. But yeah, you pretty much said it all. I just love The Longest Day. I think it's a great song, and I'm this is a song that wouldn't necessarily have been if they've done a regular tour. I don't think maybe that they would have played this song live.
Yeah.
So being able just by the concept of playing the whole album, we got to hear a song like this live. So I'm very grateful for that. I just love The Longest Day. It's a great song.
Yeah. Out of the Shadows. I really like these opening chords because it's different. It's uh I don't know, I just like this chord sequence at the beginning, especially the way Steve's bass moves around inside the chords, I think is really, really cool. This is Bruce and Steve writing credit, but to me it sounds like it's all Bruce. This is classic. This is a classic Bruce. Do we want to call this a ballad? I don't know if you'd really call this a ballad, but it's this classic Bruce tempo. Bruce likes this tempo, this sort of slower,
Mm.
slightly slower tempo. The verse, he's lower in his range, almost talking kind of thing, talking a little, singing a little quieter. And then the chorus comes in and it's Bruce in all his tenor glory, belting it out. Is it the best song like this that Bruce has written? Because Bruce writes a lot of songs like this. Probably not, but it's still a good song. Again, back to what I said about the sequencing of this record. The previous song, The Longest Day, which is very oppressive and heavy, heavy in the sense of emotionally heavy. Uh, this song has a more uplifting feel to it. The lyrical matter is more uplifting. Uh, so it serves it's placed very well on the record. I like the in the verses to clean arpeggiated guitars, and I think the chorus is super catchy in a way that Bruce can probably write. This is Bruce's wheelhouse. He could just
Yeah,
do a whole record of songs like this. This is, if Bruce wanted to be a songwriter for other people, this is what they would contact. Hey, we need a Bruce song. And this is the type of song that he would give them. Verse is quiet, big bombastic chorus for the singer to just belt his lungs out. It's also a song written by a singer too. There's that riff at the beginning. I would be curious if Bruce wrote that riff at the beginning or if that was Steve. But really the song is all about the vocals. It's all about Bruce. It's a song that Bruce obviously probably sat down with an acoustic guitar and was just strumming chords because it's all about the melody, it's all about the lyrics. It's not a riff-based song where the riff is carrying the song. This is all melody. This is all about vocals. It works great. You got to have one of these songs on every record, this type of Bruce song.
yeah. I struggle a bit with this song actually. I think the like I said, I was a bit indifferent to These Colors Don't Run. I'm more enthusiastic about this song because I like this type of song a lot
Yeah.
more. I think that just like you just said a few seconds ago, this is a type of song that sort of it makes an album a bit bigger. It makes an album flow a bit more because you have some sort of inner dynamic between the different songs
Yeah.
of the album. Again, copying what you just said, it's just like a typical Bruce song, and the vocal melody for the chorus is just like 100% Bruce. So from what I know, it is a Bruce, mainly a Bruce song. It's his verse and his chorus and his lyrics, but I think the other parts are actually Steve's parts.
Mhm.
That he just had this sort of guitar strumming parts of the song, the more simple parts, if you like, and then Steve added, I think, the beginning and mid section. What I don't really, so like, who could argue and be negative about the chorus like that? I mean, anyone,
Right.
I would sort of kill to have something like that on one of mine albums. It's just so great. But what I struggle with is the different part of the song. I don't think this song flows too good.
Mhm.
And for once, I have to go on record and actually criticize Nico. I think he has his feels that are to sort of connect the different parts just feels unnatural and a bit heavy-handed. And I think I can't remember if it's on the DVD thing or if it's another interview. I can't remember now. But I like to remember that Nico sort of admitted that he struggled with this song a bit, that this was on one of the songs that he found the most difficult. Not that it's hard drumming, it's not technically hard, but that he didn't really feel the flow of the song and that he had to struggle with connecting the dots, so to speak. Uh, and I think that that's it. Just does. It's not a. It's not. It has good bricks, but the house isn't good. And
Yeah.
to make a sort of positive comment, I really like the acoustic guitars. I think the production of the acoustic guitars is just nice. It just makes the sound of the song a bit more lush, a bit more deluxe, so to speak. But on the whole, I think this is actually one of the more worst songs on the album compared to the other songs. But it serves its purpose and it serves its place. I just don't think that this is the best song it could have been.
Yeah, and I would say this that I'll say two things. All right, Bruce is one of my favorite singers. Bruce is one of the greatest heavy metal singers of all time. So it's almost like because this is so in Bruce's wheelhouse that I just love hearing Bruce sing like this. It's yeah, this is Bruce's fastball. This is Bruce's thing. He does this really, really well. The other thought is, to your point, this song probably would have been better if it was on one of Bruce's solo records because there is a little bit of that when he does something like this in Iron Maiden, Steve has to put his piece in, and the Nico, he has to give a certain amount of the song away to the other guys in the band to make everybody happy to keep the peace, and that's the agreement that they have of the way they operate in this day and age. Uh, but this probably would have been better served on a for Bruce doing this, Bruce Dickinson, where he's calling all the shots on it. Because to me, it's all about Bruce. And this is again, it would have been nice for the guys to say, you know what, Bruce, you do this type of thing really, really well, these types of songs. So you just tell us what to do on this one because this is yours. This is your special. This is a dish that you really know how to make, you know?
Mm,
So we're going
mm,
to let you call all the shots on this one. But this is Iron Maiden and it's Steve Harris's band. And you can kind of picture like, sometimes during this era of the band, I picture these guys working on a song and they're like, yeah, this is great. And then all of a sudden Steve's car pulls up, and they see Steve's car. Oh man, he's gonna he's gonna want to put something in there. You know what I mean? Just because he has to. Yeah, is there a song on here that doesn't have Steve's name on it as a writing credit?
no.
No. So again, not Steve's a great songwriter, but sometimes I just kind of wonder if it's really for the better of the song or if it's just because Steve feels like he has to put his stamp somewhere on the song. And this is one of those songs that everyone else should have just defaulted to Bruce and let Bruce produce this one and let Bruce run with this one.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right. Next, reincarnation of Benjamin. I don't know how Brigg. Say it again.
Brig?
Brigg. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting title.
Yeah.
I remember this jumping out because who's Benjamin Brigg? I don't think anybody knows. This is so it was kind of cool that you had this sort of unique title. It got you thinking. This was a single from the record. I remember hearing this before the record came out, loving it. It's a long song, doesn't feel like it. Again, reinforcing my point that they're in a good songwriting spot on this record where they're able to pull off these longer songs without them feeling bloated. The quiet intro, thank goodness, is short and it does kind of set up a mood. Could they have dropped it? Probably. Doesn't really serve anything to the plot, if you will. They could have gone just right in with it. All the riffs work, all the riffs are cool, but what sells this song for me is the chorus. Someone to save me. That part, I love it. I love that chorus. Uh, like I mentioned, this is an example of how you can write a longer song and make it work. Nico's drumming is also very in the pocket. Uh, like in the verses, he's just locked in, man. Bass, snare, hi-hat. And it's for the betterment of the song. Makes me think kind of, not that I'm comparing Nico to Lars Ulrich. He's a way better drummer than Lars Ulrich. But the way Lars for the Black album consciously dialed it back and wasn't afraid to just do a four on the floor, straight ahead bass snare drum beat. Works really well here. So I love this one. I think it's great. It's a favorite from this era of the band. It's a favorite on the record. I just totally love this chorus.
Mm. This was a song when it was released first as a single, and I heard it. It didn't actually jump out at me that much. It felt like, okay, there's another song with a sort of slow intro thing going on. So I was more like, okay, so this is more of modern Maiden. It didn't come across as a typical single type of song. At the time, there was some sort of mystery website about Benjamin Brigg, and this was before social media and all that. So it was they had some sort of online marketing scheme going on where someone was posting questions about Benjamin Brigg and how this person wanted to know more about Benjamin Brigg. Who was this guy? of course, Maiden fans sort of immediately understood that this is our Maiden thing going on here. So that was a bit unusual and exciting. I think that the author named Sean Hudson was a bit involved in sort of writing the storyline that went on this website.
Interesting. I don't remember that. No.
But it's the song itself. Actually, it made sense to me when I was in the audience and the band on stage playing the song for me. Because even like I said, I was very enthusiastic about the album when I got the whole of the album and listened to that. But this song was still sort of some sort of in the middle for me when it came to I didn't really connect to it. But went to the gig, saw them do this live, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that Nico groove like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's just sort of bing, the light bulb above my head just went on. So after that, I sort of liked it much more. It's a Dave Murray song that he co-wrote with Steve. It sort of struck me when we were doing the research and I was listening again to Dance of Death that this song is sort of has some sort of resemblance to Age of Innocence, the Dave track. It has the same sort of vibe, but where I think Age of Innocence is a bit flat, this one is much better, a much better song. So jumping along to it in an audience in Stockholm made this song work for me. So that's how things can turn out sometimes. But yeah.
I think too that Maiden in the first part of their career, they're known for these really up-tempo driving songs. The Trooper, Run to the Hills, that's like their thing. This era of the band, I like when they lock into these sort of mid-tempo, like you just said, da 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 da. It's like really the tempo's held back a little bit. It just sits in this nice tempo range. Brighter Than a Thousand Suns does the same thing. It's not a slow song. It's certainly not a fast song either, but the main riffs are sort of like in this sort of slightly slower pocket, and they just do that really well. All right, for the greater good of God, it's funny. When I make my notes, I don't write down who this songwriting is. I always forget to do that, and I always forget to look while I'm let's prepping the episode, and I just pull it up as we're going through the episode. So as you were talking before, I was looked ahead. Okay, for the greater good of God, they sing the chorus too many times. Is this a Steve song? It's a Steve song. So yeah, it's got that the chorus, this is a Steve chorus. It's it's not that it's bad. It's just this is the opposite of Out of the Shadows. Out of the Shadows, they should have just told Bruce, "You run with this and tell us what to do." This is one where Steve should surrender to Bruce and say, "Bruce, you're the vocalist. Here's the chorus that I have. Take that and sing that, but also do something with it to add some variety." This is a problem that plagues Steve's songwriting is he gets it for the greater good of God, for the greater good of God, and it just keeps repeating the same like melody. And we've talked about this in the other albums too, even going to the point of counting how many times they sing certain choruses. And so I just wish that Steve would give a little bit more. It, I don't know. I have no idea how this works in the studio with them, but if I was a betting man, I would say that Steve's songs are a little bit more when Steve comes in with a full song, they're a little bit more untouchable than when other guys bring songs in. Steve's allowed to sort of meddle in other people's songs, but the other guys, whether it's spoken that this is the case, or if it's just an unspoken rule that you don't want to get when Steve comes in with a full song, just go with it. Don't try to get into it. Maybe the only person who is willing to go there, and we talked about Sharon and Bruce being two immovable objects colliding with each other. Maybe the studio version of that is Steve and Nico.
Nick,
Yeah, two guys that when they get in the studio are sort of destined, and they've said this, that they always have a blow up at some point because again, I have nothing to, I can't point to some quote to prove this, but I just sort of get the impression that everybody sort of settles into their own thing. People don't want to argue with Steve, so they just sort of let him do those certain things. But Nico's the guy that at some point during the session he's the guy that's got to go and have it out with Steve. And so that's what I think. Is it's a good song. I like the way the chorus really kind of opened up. There's some more strings in it that I think are add to it. The drum, what's my note here? Drums, a heavy snare beat in the verse. I'm not exactly sure what I meant by that. I love all the riff changes after the second verse, another kind of double chorus thing going on in this. But that's my impressions of it. It's that it's a 2000s era Steve song.
yeah,
I guess
but
every album has to have one of these, just like every album has to have a Bruce song.
yeah,
But if
I,
you're gonna
I,
make me pick, I like Bruce better.
I think I can sort of say like it is a Harris, definitely a reunion era Steve song, but it's just pretty good. It actually is one of the greater songs by Steve from the last 20, 30 years now ish. No, not really, but closing to. And I think we discussed this before also that it's a long Steve song, but it's also very long because there's a lot of lyrics to sing.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned this with the vocal melodies and so on. Around this time, I read this doing the research for this episode. I can't remember now, but I think Bruce and Steve talk about how they approach songwriting and what vocal melodies means to them. And
Yeah.
Steve sort of makes a comment somewhere about that Bruce is a guy who is more free with
Hmm.
his vocal lines. But Steve says that, but I'm very particular about if I make a song, the words and the vocal melody is just like that. So
Hmm.
I think you're absolutely right when you say that Steve says to Bruce, you sing for the greater good of God, and that's what you sing.
Yeah.
But if it had been a Bruce song and Bruce had some sort of mandate to do
Yeah.
his thing a bit more freely, he would ad lib something
Yeah.
and just change it around a bit. I think this is a good song, and actually I'm I was a bit excited when they brought it back for the Legacy of the Beast tour. That was an unexpected move because it's a long song and it didn't feel like one of the songs that they would pick. But I think that Bruce actually likes this song as well. I don't think they would have brought it back if it was one of Steve's songs that Bruce didn't like at all. But I think this is a good song. But I mean, I think one of my two main criticisms for this song is, again, too many words.
Hmm.
Uh, just edit the words down. Don't
Hmm.
There's at least one verse too many. And I
Hmm.
think I can pinpoint exactly. I didn't write it down because I could say that when they start to sing yet another verse, it's somewhere in the middle of the song. It feels like, no, you shouldn't have done that.
Hmm.
That was not the place in the song to go back to do another verse.
Yeah.
My second criticism is that it's a unnecessary use of unison guitars.
Hmm.
So there are guitar melodies, but they just play the same thing. It worked in the moody kind of way that we talked about in The Longest Day. Here it just feels a bit uninspired and even a bit boring, actually. But with all that said, I think this is a great song. It's a bit of a standout song, and I think it's definitely a fan favorite. So it was very appreciated when they brought it back for the Legacy of the Beast tour.
Yeah. All right, Lord of Light. We're back with this Adrian, Bruce, Steve writing team. The intro is kind of boring, but the riff after that is a great, like old school, lots of energy. Sounds like it could have been on the first two Iron Maiden records. It's a very kind of straightforward, old school style riff, which I like. The part between verse one and verse two with the harmony lines, I think is cool. It's a great chorus. I really like the chorus. And it feels kind of heavier, like as if, I don't know if the tempo drops a little bit or there's just something about it that it sort of slows down a little or the feel changes a little that really adds heaviness to it. I don't like the quiet part after the first chorus. There's maybe too many riff changes in this one, but the solo sections have a lot of energy. And I really like the last, like, two or three chords at the very end. I forget what the rhythm is exactly. It was like a da 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 or something like that, which reminds me a little bit of like the ending of "Hallowed Be Thy Name." It has that da da
Mhm.
da da sort of like thing
Mhm.
to it, which I think is pretty cool.
Mhm. I don't have that much to say about this song. I think it's a bit of a hidden gem on the album. I think it's actually a very, very good song. Uh, to me, it has some sort of Bruce solo vibe to it. The way he sings, his choices, the feel of the song is a bit like it could have been on Chemical Wedding or, one of Bruce's album where he works with Adrian. Um, so I think it's not only the way that Bruce sings and his choices in melody, but it's also a bit in Adrian's riff that it sort of sets a mood that I think is a bit more Bruce solo-ish. Of course, it's a Maiden song. It sounds like Iron Maiden and everything. But I mean, if I had to sort of pick something that I think is makes it a bit different from the rest of the song on this album, I think that would be one of my keynotes. Is that it has a bit of a Bruce solo vibe to it. But of course, Steve Harris is part of writing to it. But I really like this song, and again, this song would definitely not have been on any album tour if they had done like a regular one.
Traditional, yeah.
So, you know,
All
but I
right, the
don't. Yeah.
last song on the record, "The Legacy."
Mhm.
This was interesting. I sort of, I don't want to say I forgot about this one, but it's a long record, so by the time you get to this point, maybe you're slightly worn out. But this you mentioned hidden gem for Lord of Light. I feel like the Legacy is sort of the deep cut hidden gem on this record. For me, it's another slow intro, but it kind of works. The melody at the beginning, it has a very sing-songy, almost like a child song, but against these dark lyrics and with the acoustic guitars, it really works. It makes it sound real menacing because he's singing these dark lyrics, but the melody line is very folk songy like.
Mhm.
I love those big chords with all the reverb on 'em. Da, 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 da. If they were to work with a symphony, Iron Maiden and the
Yeah.
London Philharmonic, this I could just totally picture this. Yada, yada, yada. You can picture that just
Mhm.
being super dramatic, a bunch of violins and stuff playing that. Uh, and they return like throughout the song too, which I think is really really cool. This is another one that has that sort of heavy mid-tempo vibe to it that they seem to do really well during this era of the band. Steve has some nice bass lines in this song that jump out. I wish his bass jumped out more like this, where a lot of times during this era of the band, he's just kind of playing along with the guitars. I love it when he breaks off from that and does something a little bit different than what the guitars are doing. Wish he would do that more because his bass sounds good on this record. Sometimes it gets a little lost with all the guitars and the synthesizers, but his bass sounds good on here. There's a very cool part before the solos, much like Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, like a single note riff thing where everybody's playing in unison. This one has kind of a Celtic vibe to it for me. You mentioned Thin Lizzy earlier, the song Black Rose. It almost makes me think of that a little bit, where they're just doubling each other, moving through all these different riffs. Great solos in this one. I like Bruce's layered vocals in this. This is another thing. He doesn't layer his vocals a lot on this record. Whereas back in the 80s, did run to the there'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
tons of vocals and stuff. He doesn't do that a lot in this era of the band, but he does it here and makes me wish he would kind of do that a little bit more. The ending is very dramatic. It's like everything slows down, the riff starts slowing down, and there's like I think a gong hit or something. And yeah, I just love it. And I think it's a great way to end the record. The title, the legacy, the aftermath. You could have titled it The Aftermath or something like that.
Mm,
Now, it fits in with the theme and the mood of the record. It's pretty, what's the timing on this one? Pretty long, probably. Is it 9 minutes, 20 seconds? Is that the longest song on the record? No, it's
mm,
the For the Greater Good of God is 9:23. But this
mm,
just, again, another one of those songs because there's so much stuff going on that you don't. Whereas For the Greater Good of God has too many verses, like you mentioned, too many lyrics. It just feels like there's fat could have been trimmed off it. This to me doesn't feel like that because there's enough riff changes and everything that I enjoy it. So this was kind of the hidden gem for me, the one I kind of forgot about. And as I was prepping for this episode, I was like, wow, kind of forgot about this song. Maybe because it's all the way at the end of the record. Can't picture it anywhere else on the record. I don't think they should
oh,
have moved it anywhere else on the record. It's a great closing track. So yeah, a hidden gem for me on this record. Love this song.
yeah. I th just like you say, I think it's a hidden gem, and I think it's just down to being the two last songs on the album,
On a
of
long
course.
record, yeah.
Yeah, on a long record. Janik said somewhere that when he was coming up with the parts for this song, he said that his idea or concept behind the song, and not talking about the lyrics because these are by Steve, but he wanted to do something more quote orchestral with no chorus, and he just wanted to have like different parts coming and going, and just making these parts making the song moving along. And I think he did just that. And what comes down to Steve and what is Janik when it comes to the very final arrangement that we hear on the recording, I don't really know at least. But I think that if that was Janik's idea to make a more orchestral song without the chorus, but just having parts coming and going, I think he nailed it. This is
Yeah.
a great. I like. No, I don't like. I love the different parts of this song. I love Janik's acoustic stuff. I think he should do more of that.
Yeah.
And this was also considered to be the title of the album, The Legacy. But
Yeah.
I think that when it comes, if I would like for Brighter Than a Thousand Suns is an interesting, intriguing title. But for a band like Iron Maiden to make an album called The Legacy would be sort of meh. What was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So I even think that A Matter of Life and Death is a better title than The Legacy, actually. But talking about vocal melodies, Steve lyrics, and what Bruce does and what Bruce doesn't do, that in the very, I think it's the very last verse, there is some passage, I should have written this down, but there is somewhere where Steve hasn't actually written the words with the right amount of syllables to actually go with the melody. So the way that Bruce has to sing it to just slavishly follow the vocal line makes it
Yeah.
sound really. He sings like something like he just do some sort of noise instead of actually singing something to just make it fit the vocal melody, which is a bit odd, and it doesn't sound good. And I think that Bruce must have been sort of scratching his head like, okay, what do I actually do here? This doesn't, because I think Bruce is, even though Steve says that he himself is more meticulous when it comes to the vocal melodies and the words, I think that Bruce is better at doing stuff more vocable. Is that a word? Singable. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? But where Steve is more slavishly following his own sort of melody line, and that's like that's holy to him. But again, best best way to finish this album. There are no other tracks on this album that could have been the closing track. This just feels, and the way it ends, and sort of just, like water with the tide going away or something. It just
Yeah.
feels, it's almost like it's goosebumps quality.
Yeah.
But I really like this one as well. So yeah, we seem to agree on most things on this album. No songs where we were
Yeah.
kind of very, very differentiated.
And Yannick, much like, was it on Virtual 11 where he has a song right at the end of the record, I think, or was it the X Factor? I think there was a Yannick song that it's like different enough from everything else on
Yeah.
the record. He adds this really nice, and I think Yannick, when I think of this era of the band, I always think of Dance of Death as being like the album that Yannick really shines on from a songwriting perspective. So as
Mm.
much as I complain about three guitars in Iron Maiden, I think Yannick adds a nice uh, something different to the songwriting, and he always seems to have that one really good song
Mm.
on every record here during this era of the band. So,
Yeah.
all right, any final
Before we
thoughts on
go,
this? Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say that I made some sort of unnecessary cliffhanger at the beginning of the episode when I was saying that I thought that this album was better than both Dance of Death and Brave New World when it came out, and that's the way I looked upon this album for many years. But as you might have understood by now, I don't really feel that way today. I think that these three albums are more or less as good as each other. And I think making these episodes sort of made me go back and reevaluate my initial impressions that I've
Yeah,
had since then. So, although I think this is a really good album, but the peaks and valleys on the previous albums are maybe a bit more the difference between the good and bad, if you will, want to put it that way. On this album, this is more even in quality. It's more smoothened out. I don't mean the song, the very songs themselves, but more or less how the album is composed. This feels like a bit more even, a bit more thought out. Perhaps even going into details such as the drum parts that maybe Nico did compose or
hmm
thought out his drum parts just a little bit more for this album, that it's a bit more worked and all the parts are more in place on this album. But today it doesn't necessarily makes it that much better than the two previous albums. They are good, but they are good in different ways, I think, today.
yeah, yeah. Well said. I think for me, Dance of Death moved up a little bit in my appreciation for it in the process of doing these podcast episodes. But a matter of life and death, I've always liked this record, and I
Mm.
think it it hasn't made me like it more, and it hasn't made me like it less. I've always had kind of a pretty consistent opinion. And maybe if anyway, I even like it a little bit more. Like stuff like The Legacy, I kind of forgot about that
Mm.
song. When I think of this record, I think of Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, Benjamin Brigg, and so I sort of forgotten about that. And it's a long record, so it's a little challenging to listen to it from beginning to end. I tend to take it in pieces, but I kind of approached this more beginning to end, preparing for this. And I also discovered that I really like the sequencing of the record and the flow of the record. So,
Yeah.
all right. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, maybe we should talk about their singles. I have a few quite interesting bits to talk about here, and I won't be. Been going on for quite a while now. I am watching the clock here and see that we've been talking a bit more longer than I actually thought that we would. But anyway, just to finish this off, like we usually do, talking about the singles and the B-sides. For this session, they actually, and this is a bit weird when it comes to Iron Maiden, because they usually just use the stuff that they record. So if they record like B-sides, cover versions, they put those out on the singles that they plan to release, of course. Uh, and they did so for this one as well. They recorded Tush by ZZ Top. They recorded Angel of Death by Thin Lizzy, and they recorded Space Truck, the Deep Purple song. Tush and Angel of Death is yet to be released. They are in a vault somewhere, and we've never heard. And I think on that the Making of Matter of Life and Death DVD film thing, I think there is somewhere a little snippet with Bruce singing Tush or something. They do some sort of acoustic thing with that song, the ZZ Top song, but it's not been released. That's weird. They actually did release Space Trucking 6 years later in 2012, and there was this sort of tribute album put out called Re-Machined. So there are a lot of bands, I think, including Metallica, doing When a Blind Man Cries, and we have Joe Bonamassa and a few other artists playing a song of Machine Head by Deep Purple. And our Maiden are also there doing Space Trucking. And I have to be honest, I think it's perhaps the worst Maiden cover. I love the song Space Trucking. I just don't think that Maiden's version does the song any service or makes it. Have you heard the Space Trucking done by Maiden? It just sounds like they sort of know the song and sort of just jamming along to it in the studio. And the guitar players are a bit over the place. No one is really playing the keyboard parts, which is I mean, that's a huge thing of Deep Purple. No one is playing the keyboard, and no one of the guitar players remember to. But there's this part we should perhaps do to make the song work better. It just doesn't sound. I think this is my problem with it. It doesn't, compared to earlier Maiden cover songs, they all are done in a sort of perhaps lighthearted, but with a lot of respect.
Yeah.
The Space Trucking doesn't sound like they actually respect the song. They're just a bunch of guys recording something after a few beers in the studio. Before they wrap it up, and it just doesn't.
Somebody started playing the riff, and they all just kind of jumped in, and they went from memory.
Yeah, but they recorded these singles. They released a few singles with other B-sides. They did Benjamin Brig, of course. It came out before the album in mid of August of 2006. And this is a single version. They also CD. This is something that's unique for Iron Maiden. It's a 10-inch single. And it got the song. It got The Trooper from something called the Legends session recorded by the BBC. And it also has Run to the Hills recorded at the same time as B-side. This is a funny thing that I think a few Maiden fans may have missed out on. So this is the regular European edition of the CD single. And it has Hallowed Be Thy Name recorded from this radio session they did. But if you turn it around, it looks like this. And if you watch carefully enough, you can see that this looks like the backside of a painting, of a frame. And unless you do this, you will miss out that this is the backside to this painting, which of course is Eddie, but in a weird way. And this picture of Eddie was when I talked about earlier in the episode, talked about this mystery web page about Benjamin Brig. This was one of the paintings he left behind, so to speak. But that's a funny thing. Yeah. So that was, and this illustration is made by Melvin Grant, not by the Americans who did the album sleeve. They also recorded. I say that again. They also released Different World as a single a bit later. Actually, they released this on the 25th of December. Maybe they were trying to do a Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter kind of move again, where they recorded that. Released that song Christmas time when no one else is releasing records. But they put out a few different formats. This is like a CD, DVD kind of version. and they also made a picture disc, 7-inch picture disc of the single. These has uh, live versions recorded in Denmark. It doesn't say on the sleeve, but it's recorded in Copenhagen, Denmark, on the 10th of November. These live versions, and it's uh, uh, down there. I just lost my thread of thoughts here. Uh, yes, this also has a fourth cover song they recorded and released, and that is Hocus Pocus
Mm,
by the Dutch band Focus.
focus. Yes.
Yeah, and it got Nico doing some sort of jodeling frenzy.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. It's even a bit, yeah, it's nice. It has a bit of a light, like I said, a light-hearted feel to it, but it's not like sloppy in the same way that I think space trucking is just sloppy. But I have to say that this is not worthy of Iron Maiden to have digital illustrations of Eddie like this. This is
Yeah.
just boring as hell,
Yeah.
and it's not. Why? Why?
Yeah.
They used to have like great singles,
Yeah.
and of course that's Derek Riggs doing that work. But here we are in '06, and they have some sort of digital boringness printed as their sleeves.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I have to say about the singles, and maybe that is what's to say in this episode on A Matter of Life and Death.
All right. Well, there you go. A matter
Mm.
of life and death. Uh, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, make sure you check out Matthias's band Dead Kosmonaut and their just released album Retrospectre, available in all kinds of different ways: Bandcamp, vinyl, CD. Is there a cassette tape version of it?
Maybe it will
There
be,
might
but
be.
not yet.
All right, keep your eyes
Maybe.
peeled, you cassette
Yeah,
fans out there. There could be a
yeah.
cassette version. Make sure you head over to Layer of the Alchemist and see the video version of this, as well as the video version of all of our previous episodes and other videos I do discussing hard rock and heavy metal. Make sure you check out my other podcast, Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast that I do with my buddy Darren. And I think that about wraps it up. So we will see you out there somewhere in time.